Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum is on the air.
This is Dr. Dan, and this is Freedom Forum Live, streamed every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble. Tonight, what is the libertarian perspective on national ID and central bank currency? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, let's get started here. In the past years, I have been invited to visit high school classes and discuss with students our Constitution and the rights and freedoms that document guarantees to each of us. Considering the generational gap, I wasn't sure how best to open the conversation in a way that would be engaging and meaningful to my audience, high school students. Standing in front of the class, I asked, what is freedom? What does freedom mean to you? And so we started a discussion. And gradually, a consensus emerged that a person could be considered free if he retained the final, uncontested authority to make decisions about his own life. It was then easy to talk about the government continuum from anarchy to totalitarianism, and where on that line the framers of our Constitution wanted us to reside. Today, America is angrily divided, and we are on a rapidly accelerating downward spiral toward economic and societal destruction. We're ruled by the wealthy elite and their complicit, dishonest media. Our government has embarked on a course designed to limit individual freedom, restrict property rights, curtail speech, and ultimately control every aspect of our lives. History teaches us that dictators come to power with the help of groups of ignorant people, many of whom are well-meaning, but who are fooled by the promises of a place at the table when the smoke clears. So, making those promises, however, once they make those promises, dictators reveal their plans and give us an opportunity to resist tyranny. The global elite, the World Economic Forum, and their government sycophants plan to require national ID, implanted ID chips, and central bank digital currency. They tell us that these measures will make us safer, reduce crime, ensure fair elections, and make everyone fiscally responsible. There are, of course, deceptions. Those are deceptions. Their objective is to total control of our lives and the establishment of one world totalitarian governance under their authority. So, national ID and central bank digital currency, if enacted in America, will be the end of your freedom. And believe me, that's what we need to talk about, is it not? So tonight on Freedom Forum Live, it's the libertarian perspective, and we analyze and discuss situations and solutions to issues of the day from the libertarian perspective. Our guest is Bob Drock, a certified management accountant, CMA, who earned an MBA degree from Stanford University. Bob was the libertarian candidate for state auditor in North Carolina last year and outperformed all but one of the other statewide third-party candidates on the ballot. This shows how libertarian ideas resonate in North Carolina. So, Bob Drock, welcome as a guest on Freedom Forum Live.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I'm really happy to be here and excited for our conversation.
I'm excited to have our conversation too. And the best way to introduce you, Bob Drock, is to quote from your website. And your website, by the way, is drock.us. That's DRACH.US. And here is a quote from your website, which I found particularly engaging. And it is, "What will you do to protect liberty? Government is there to protect our inalienable rights, grant our civil liberties, and defeat aggression. But without our diligence, it would erode our rights, deny our civil liberties, and turn its force against us. If you are willing to get involved in government, everything from writing a letter to running for office, let me know now. Contact me and let me know your interest." That is so true. We have been sitting on the sofa for so long that the left has had its way. The totalitarians, the collectivists, as I like to call them, are in ascendance. So, Bob, you and I are obviously allies in a battle to force the government to obey the limitations imposed by the Constitution. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And Dan, I would say it's a sobering perspective, but to some extent we've lost the battle. And our fight is to kind of hold our ground, regroup, and start to chisel our way back. And the topics for tonight, central bank digital currency and digital IDs, that they really the next step of oppression or subjugation from the government. We really want to kind of hold the line here and start to push back.
So, Bob Drox, from a libertarian perspective, what is your assessment of the current status of government overreach and its complete lack of fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm an accountant, so I come at things a little bit from a numbers perspective, and everyone understands the situation with the federal budget. We have a deficit of we have a federal debt of $36 trillion. Unimaginable numbers. Every year, the federal deficit, budget deficit, is trillions of dollars. So, as a libertarian, you would think, no taxes. Let's cut spending. But frankly, taxation or debt itself is future taxes. So, what we have to do is bring current taxes in line with spending. And you can do that many ways. You can grow the revenue base, or you can cut the tax. You can cut the spending. But it's probably going to take both. But we have to get to that point where we stop drowning in government overspending. It devalues the currency. It wipes out people's savings. It drives inflation. The monetary and fiscal policy drive inflation. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo behind the scenes, but the headline number is the 36 trillion in debt, and it's increasing by trillions of dollars every year. That's a place to dig in and start to stop the madness.
Well, so the question really is, how do you get started with that? I mean, there's so many embedded costs that the government has to pay for. Promises made to groups of people, promises made, and then in a way the programs were not self-funded, and they were not self-funded on purpose. We know that from history. So you have a bunch of programs that we have to pay for, and then there's all the rest. Where do we get started with that? How does that happen?
Yeah, well, there's a very simple place to get started. And it's really having an executive who holds the line and says, we have to spend what we bring in, or we have to bring in what we spend. I mean, every organization in the world, everything from a household to a business to the government, they need this balance. What you spend and what you bring in have to equal. Now, exactly how you do that is a problem. It's a mess, right? Because we're out of balance right now. But the way government is set up is the people's representatives in the legislature establish the spending priorities and set the taxation rates. and the executive needs just to hold the line. I don't really care how you do it. In fact, I want the people's representatives to fight over it and figure it out. But do not keep kicking the can down the road. Do not steal candy from the babies in our society. Do not force future people to pay for your inability to make tough decisions. And that's where I would put it.
Well, we're not really stealing candy from one generation. We're stealing candy from probably 2, 3, 4 generations down the road. That's what it appears like to me, and I'm sure you recognize that as well. But obviously, doing what you are suggesting is the right thing to do, because in our own households, we have to do that. I cannot keep on spending more than I earn. That causes bankruptcy. The problem with the government is they have the mechanisms in place since 1913, one of the worst years in American history. The 16th Amendment, 17th Amendment. 16th Amendment was the income tax, 17th Amendment, direct election of senators, and the Federal Reserve Bank. The three things that then allowed the government to spend enormous amounts of money unchecked, at will, without any consequences. And that's really where we stand now. So
Yeah.
How does one go about that when you have people running for the Senate that'll spend $200 million for a job that pays $175,000 a year, and you know why that is? They all go there poor and come back multimillionaires. So when that is the modus operandi of our elected officials, what switches do we pull to get us out of that mess?
Yeah, well, the road to hell is the gently sloping road. It's paved with good intentions. I think C.S. Lewis is famous for that quote, but it actually originates from a biblical verse in one of the Gospels, I think. But that's where we've been. We've been going down this gentle road, and with a lot of good intentions. You mentioned the establishment of the Federal Reserve, and then in 1971, they took the dollar off of the gold standard and turned it into fiat currency. And then just recently in 2008, 2009, they started monetizing the debt by the Federal Reserve buying the bonds. So, there are 3 or 4 steps. And that's why I say we've to some extent, we've lost the battle. We've really gotten ourselves in deep doo-doo. And we need to start to unwind that. We can't go back to 1917. We can't undo all the damage in one fell swoop. But we can recognize that there's a problem, and we can elect leaders who will take on the problem. And, that's what I would say the starting point is. If someone stands up and says they can keep spending money that we don't have, we can indebt our children. If they say that, spending 10% of the budget on debt service is not enough, we can make it 20% or 30%. That's the person you need to run away from, screaming. I mean, that's the starting point.
The problem, of course, is that people expect to get things from the government. They've been led to believe that the government is the source of cure for their financial ills and social ills and things of that nature. And because obviously people who are elected to public office and go to Washington, D.C., most of them have an ulterior motive. In other words, to get very wealthy, not have to work ever again as long as they live. And so they promise everything that their constituents want to hear. And unfortunately, they get elected, they go to Washington, D.C., and that cycle is just a perpetual cycle. They go poor, they come back wealthy, then someone else poor goes and takes their place. They come back wealthy, and it's over and over and over again. And I guess you get what you vote for. We have a uniparty there. And I know as a libertarian, you have something to say about the concept of the uniparty.
Yeah, it's and I'll come at it from a budget perspective again. Both Democrats and Republicans are equally responsible for the mess that we're in. If you look at the budget that was passed in the last Democratic administration, compare it with the budget passed by the Republican administration, they are 95% exactly the same. Both of these parties are overspending on exactly the same things. Now, on the margin, they're going to argue, right? Right now, they're arguing about, I think, $300 billion of additional subsidies to people who are 4 times over the poverty limit to reduce the cost of the failed Obamacare program. So they're arguing over $300 million in a $6 trillion, $300 billion in a $6 trillion budget. So both parties are basically all in on the same budgets, which are trillions of dollars more than we take in each year. That's why we call them the uniparty. It doesn't matter if you vote Republican or Democrat. You know, I once had a friend, I was explaining I'm a libertarian. He's like, well, what's a libertarian? I said, well, you know, they believe in fiscal responsibility. The government should, you know, not spend more than they take in. And he's like, well, isn't that and he stopped himself. Oh yeah, that's not the Republicans. So, you know, the Republicans have over the years branded themselves as fiscally responsible. But if you look at what they've done for the last 30 years, it's ridiculous that anyone would believe that's their brand. It's just not true. They're exactly the same, both parties.
Well, so from that standpoint, then it's really kind of a lost struggle, as you said. We really have lost that struggle. There's so many embedded costs that you really can't take away. Some of them really, they're not even constitutional, are they?
Well, as you say, the Constitution has been changed a bit by amendment. And then we know the different administrations push that as far as they absolutely can. So many of our political decisions now are being made in the Supreme Court. And why is that? It's because the government is just pushing every possible limit. And this is really getting to the central point, I think, of what we're talking about, is that people want to trust the government. People want to do the right things. You know, they want to help their fellow citizens. We're a wealthy country. We understand the need for a social safety net in some situations. But really, did anyone ever intend the government to be 36%, 1/3 of the economy, federal and local governments, 1/3 of the economy? You absolutely cannot unwind that in one fell swoop. What you have to first do is make sure it doesn't keep growing. And then maybe you make it 34% of the economy, and then maybe 32% of the economy, and get the genie back in the bottle to where people can have the freedoms and the civil liberties. They can exercise their natural rights without having to service this incredible, unfair, growing debt. It's unconscionable that people are burdened. Unborn generations are burdened with this legacy.
Well, that's true. I mean, and that's what we both agreed to, and we've said that it's not fair to do that to my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, however many generations we're looking at, probably more than just 4. But the problem is that people who run for office have to spend a bunch of money to do that, and they are beholden to the people who give them that money. And it always comes with a price tag. And that price tag means you have to vote for things that are not necessarily in the best interest of fiscal responsibility. And that's how we got where we are now. In order to stay in power, you have to please people who are on the take. And you take their money away, you're not going to get their vote. That's what we're dealing with at this point. It's at that base level, is that if you vote to take away my check, which I probably don't deserve in the first place, then I'm not going to vote for you for re-election. That's what
Yeah.
you're
So
dealing with.
you're you're painting a fatalistic picture here, and if you believe in that cycle, then yeah, maybe you throw in the towel. Maybe that's it. But you and I are here talking because we have faith in humanity. We know that at the at the end of the day, we can find 51% of the people who believe that the United States is a great country. The opportunities that we've been afforded in our lifetimes were worth the sacrifices of the people that came before us, and that it's going to take additional sacrifice to fix this thing. And if you don't believe that we can accomplish that, then probably turn off the radio. But if you're with us and you wanna see if we can right the ship, we can make the tough decisions, we can find people of moral character that are in it for more than just the money and the power. Let's go find them. Let's go make that happen. Let's see if there's a silent majority out there.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm just saying that what our job is to get these people off the sofa. They're sitting there, they're watching this, and most of them are just unwilling or afraid or whatever their excuse is to get up and run for office, support people of character, and make sure they get elected. That's what it is going to take, as you said.
Yeah.
But
So
these people have to become involved. And we have a crisis of non-involvement. That's what our crisis is.
Yeah, so I think we can encourage people to do that, and I think we have to make them aware. I mean, some people, again, the road to hell is a gently sloping road. I mean, a lot of us don't even realize. I was talking to somebody about the Social Security program recently, and this person said they're conservative, and we were talking a little bit, but they said, I need my Social Security, and they explained their situation, and they need their Social Security. They're dependent on that for their retirement and their lifestyle. But she was insisting she was a conservative. And gently, we had the discussion that, well, Social Security is a social welfare program. It's not a savings account. It's a tax. You pay the tax, and the government redistributes your money to the beneficiaries. And now you're a beneficiary, and you hope the program continues. And the program needs to continue to take care of those beneficiaries that truly depend on it. But we need to stop lying to people and saying that there's a Social Security savings account. I mean, it's ridiculous that the Social Security Administration sends people statements that say, this is the money you're going to receive when you retire. It's a complete outright lie. There's a law that exists that says in 2034, Social Security benefits are going to be cut by 25%. Now, if you go on the Social Security website, you don't see that. You don't see them promising to cut but that's the law. So, part of it is waking people up and saying, if you believe in socialism, then full speed ahead on Social Security, raise Social Security tax to pay for the benefits we're currently paying out. But if you're a conservative, if you're not a socialist, if you want people to control their retirement money and make decisions that benefit the economy and themselves, then start reforming the system today. I'm not saying do anything radical. Start reforming it today, and we can do that. I mean, people understand you can't push out more money than you bring in. Start there, and then make the reforms that are compassionate, that take care of the people that are most that they're most vulnerable. But fix the system so it can last into the future generations.
Well, that's really one of the problems. We're talking about Social Security. The problem is it was a government program that was designed to transfer wealth. It was not designed as a retirement plan, because if it were, they would have taken that money, invested it wisely, like the city of Galveston did. We all know that story, that there was a time when municipalities and government entities could opt out of the Social Security program as long as they collected the same percentage of money. And then the city of Galveston was able to invest that wisely. And people who worked for the city and are now, or at least at that time, they were getting benefits that were far superior to whatever the federal government was providing. So we have a program in the country, the Social Security, that people do depend on. And there is no question that there are people who absolutely do depend on it. They're living on Social Security, as incredibly difficult as that might be. But they are living on Social Security. You can't take that away from them because they were promised that they would be able to live on Social Security. So the reform in that program has to be that you can't keep spending the money coming in from the Social Security taxes on other things other than Social Security. That would be, to me, one of the primary things that should have been done 50 years ago, but obviously wasn't. So wouldn't that be one of the things you could do?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of fabulous ideas for what these incremental reforms are. I think when you talk about reforming programs that people depend on, it scares people. And you were referring earlier to people who are desperate for re-election, for the power, for enriching themselves. I mean, those people will definitely try to scare the folks who are dependent on these very important programs. Yeah. So that's why we need good people to run for office, and you got to be open to lots of ideas. I mean, it's going to take probably raising some taxes. It's going to be talk about making tough decisions about making sure the appropriate people are receiving the benefits, and slowly getting this thing back on track. Like I said, right now the law is Social Security is going to be cut by 25%. Well, how is that going to happen exactly? It's pretty important for someone to articulate either how that happens or what's going to change in the law, so that we make sure people are appropriately covered.
So what you're basically saying is we need people of moral character to run for office and get elected, and then be straight up with the American people and say, look, here are the things that we have to do if we are going to survive as a nation. And that's really what it comes down to, because we are not going to survive as a nation if we keep spending trillions of dollars per year more than we take in. It's just not going to happen. It's not possible. With that plus the unfunded liabilities as well, it's a lot more than 32 or what. I've forgotten the number, but the numbers more.
What day is it?
What minute is it? Every minute it's going up even higher. So you have to have people who are willing to say, look, here's the truth. These are going to be some tough times, but if we want to survive as a nation, which I think we should, because we are the major force of good on earth, yes, these are the things that we're going to have to do so we can remain or become solvent. Remain. We're not solvent, so
we're not. We recognize that now. Yeah.
So we have to do whatever we can to become solvent and actually make a profit in order to pay down the debt.
Well, and I'm paying down the debt might be step 3 or 4 or 5. I really focus my rhetoric on let's get in balance. It's going to take a lot of hard work and tough decisions to get in balance. And right now the nation has decided that paying 10% of our income for debt service is okay. And if that's what people think, then we'll continue to do that as long as we need to. Ideally, I mean, the economists say you grow your way out of these problems, right? So you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't want to stymie economic growth, or you need to strike a balance. I mean, eventually everyone's going to have to take it in the shorts a little bit. It's going to be reduced economic growth. It's going to be maybe not everyone's going to get all the benefits they thought they were. And some people are going to pay taxes for benefits that were distributed to prior generations. And that's not a winning electoral message necessarily, unless you respect people. Everyone listening to this knows that income has to equal what goes out. Some people want to make sure that they get their share. That's completely understandable. But I think that more than half the people say, let's make it right. Let's keep this country going. Let's make it right.
So really, those are wise words, Bob Drack. I And I know I believe them, and I know you believe them because you understand economics. It was your profession. The problem is going to be getting that message out in a way that everyone understands that and understands it in the context of you must do this or else we are toast. How do you
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get into all the details. Like I say, you just establish the fundamental principle. Let's bring in what we spend, and let's spend what we bring in. But I think that's why it's important to talk about some of these other issues to highlight the importance of the libertarian principles. Right? We've talked about the importance of that, giving people their natural rights, preserving civil liberties, and a couple topics that you raised were digital IDs, government digital IDs, and central bank digital currencies. And so, in those two instances, unlike the monster budget spending problem, we can see the perils of government at work. And just take the digital currency, the national ID, the digital ID, for example. I liken the concept of a digital ID to when an infant is born, you take a computer chip and you inject it into the infant's neck. And then that infant will have a super convenient life, right? You won't need to worry about social security card or number. Won't need to worry about driver's licenses or number. Bank accounts, automatically register. All these forms that we have to fill out, no problem. Just scan the chip. So that's really what a national digital ID is. It's the ultimate inconvenience. You just trust the government to record the ID correctly, to protect your personal information, not exploit it. If you got political enemies, they won't track you through train stations and airports and chase you down. No, you just enjoy the convenience of your digital ID. Of course, I'm being a little bit facetious, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Nobody is going to inject a chip in their neck so the government can track them. Or, if people really value the convenience that much, we can let them do it, right? Libertarians believe in freedom of association. If you choose to do that, if you choose to give your data to someone and let them track you through your life. But we cannot have a government that requires that of its citizens, because we know a government will abuse that power. We know that we've got examples of it now, even without the national digital ID. We've got examples like debanking of people, deplatforming on social media. We could go on and on with how the digital information that we provide right now to both the government and the private services infringe on our rights. And a national digital ID is that infringement on steroids. So I know I'm kind of bouncing between the big issues and small ones, but they're related in the fact that we have to hold the ground on liberty. We have to establish limits. See if we can get our friends in society to help enforce those limits.
So yes, they are related, those issues. And what you're talking about pretty much is the fact that a digital ID would allow the government to
Okay, back online with you?
Back online. I don't know what that was. That was kind of interesting.
Okay, well, we're on a roll. Keep rolling, man.
So the point is that the Constitution gives us the right not to be known by the government. That's what the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments basically do, the right to privacy. And so we cannot have a situation in which the government could enforce that kind of chip to be placed in everyone. That would be the ultimate totalitarian dictatorship dream, would it not? It
Yeah,
would
I mean,
be
we watch these dystopian movies, Hunger Games and whatnot. That's digital ID, man. That's
well,
crazy.
it exactly is. My concern with digital ID is that younger generations who are so used to digital, the use of digital devices, the convenience of the digital world, will not understand that the great and enormous danger of this. To me, one of those dangers obviously is they will know wherever you are at every single moment. You cannot hide when you have a chip in you. You will not be able to hide. That will be known to the government. But the other problem is that will then allow the government to enforce certain codes of behavior on you because you cannot hide from them. You will not be able to say things online or anywhere else without the government being able to exact revenge on you if they don't agree with you. Isn't that
Right.
right?
That's right. Right. And, we use chip as a metaphor, whether it's retinal scans or facial recognition. I mean, we just need strict limits on what the government can do with the information they collect. And we need to frankly hamper their ability to misuse that information for their political ends. And now you raise the issue of people voluntarily give up a lot of information and a lot of control just for convenience. And
Mhm.
there is some tension there. There's a trade-off. We understand that. But for people that can be able to control that, to be able to opt in or opt out, that's hugely important. And I still know people that refuse to get like a real ID. If you ever fly through an airport, you need a real ID now. Well, you don't need a not real ID. You can walk up and say, I don't have an ID, and they will give you a thorough search and they'll let you go through, right? So there you can opt out. And so that's part of the way to communicate to folks who want the convenience of this. If you take the convenience of it, understand you're giving up some privacy, and make sure that all citizens have the opportunity to opt out. So the other thing that's important is to have some barriers, right? It's okay if I give personal information to the credit card company, different personal information to the bank. I may choose to use Zelle or Venmo, or I may have a Facebook profile that's got a lot of information on it. But I just mentioned 5 or 6 different entities, right? So by having these different entities, it's a bit inconvenient, right? I got to maintain all these different profiles, but it's easier to enforce. It's easier if one of the actors goes rogue, has a data breach, or just doesn't earn my trust. I can drop out of that without ruining my whole life. If the government is the be all and end all, that's totalitarian power, and that's got to be completely unacceptable. People have to, freedom isn't free. Maybe you don't live in a utopian society with a chip in your neck and everything's hunky dory. We live in a real world, and defenses against totalitarianism include things like having multiple providers for digital services.
Well, that's why the specter of a central bank digital currency is really troubling to me, because if you add that power to a national ID, then you have the tool. You really have a complete set of tools for any dictator on earth would be salivating to have those two things, would he not? I mean, let's face it. If they know wherever you are, they monitor everything you do, write, say, and whatever. And if they don't like it, you can't buy any food, you can't get any gas, you can't pay any bills. You're a complete non-person.
But Dan, just think how convenient and secure that would be. And it's guaranteed, right? There's no risk. The government will take care of you.
Well, yeah, they will take care of you in a positive way or a negative way, is what the implication is. If they like what you're doing, if you're a good boy and you toe the line and don't make anyone angry at you in the government, then your life is, I wouldn't say great, but it will be that sort of float along in the stream totalitarian life, like in 1984.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
exactly. But the fact of the matter is that it's really tough for most of us to trust that if the government had those tools, that they would be able to limit themselves from taking total control.
Yeah, I think in our national politics, the last 2 years have been really, really instructive. We had a Democratic administration who there's evidence that they've persecuted the Republicans, and now we have a Republican administration, and there's evidence they're persecuting the Democrats. I mean, here it is, real time, real life. Do you want a government that has that level of control, that can swing back and forth between political powers like that? It's first of all, the government's way too big; it's got way too much power, and then they've proven over and over again their ability to misuse that power. So, another interesting example of this. I don't know, Dan, if you talked to anyone recently about civil asset forfeiture. Is that a big issue for you?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, it is, because there are rules about civil asset forfeiture that are not being followed by the federal government. I've interviewed people over the past several years who've been subjected to civil asset forfeitures, who are not guilty of anything and have never gotten their stuff back.
Okay, so a central bank digital currency is the potential for civil asset forfeiture for every single American for any mistake or misunderstanding that any bureaucrat in any bureaucracy makes. It's terrifying. It's terrible.
Well, it is, and the interesting thing is that there are some countries who have tried this. There is a company apparently whose business it is to convert a country's currency to digital, and it was just tried in Thailand. And I read an article about the fact that instantaneously 3 million people were locked out of all their bank accounts, instantaneously, and that the panic was enormous. The panic was enormous, and it was at the point where shopkeepers and business people became so afraid of the system that they would only accept cash, which sounds fine to me.
Yeah, well, we want to distinguish between a central bank digital currency and something like crypto, or other forms of digital currency like stablecoin, or even Zelle or bank transfers, ACH transfers. There are lots of ways to use currency, like to conduct transactions, monetary transactions. The pernicious thing about this central bank digital currency is that it's in the control of the central government, where all these other options we've talked about, and the reason Bitcoin is so popular is it's the antithesis. It's a secure public ledger system with a certain amount of autonomy, anonymity, and no control by any sovereign power. So we like a society that's based on lots of mediums of exchange, where people have options for how they do their transactions, and that there's a public ledger, and not concentrating so much power and control in the hands of a government that can change every few years and persecute either intentionally or just because of the mistakes that are made in bureaucracies.
Well, that really is the problem. The government has not shown that it is able to maintain. It has not shown the ability to be able to be contained within the limitations of the Constitution. It's really what it comes down to. You and I both know that the Constitution gives the government 18 things that it can do, Article 1, Section 8. And the 10th Amendment, 9th and 10th Amendment are very specific that the government is limited if it is not prohibited to the states, if it is a power not given specifically to the government is not allowed to do it. That's the written law.
Yeah, we love the Constitution. If we followed that Constitution, we would live in a fabulous society. But
absolutely.
Since the government has crept in and taken every possible power it can, for the reasons you mentioned, for their own personal aggrandizement, for their building their own wealth, to get reelected constantly. If the government didn't behave that way, the Constitution would be intact, and we'd be a lot more free.
And so that really is the problem: is that no matter what conveniences that kind of system promises, no matter how easy it would be for someone to go and get on an airplane or buy something in a store or whatever. The problem is when you allow the government to get their hands on that kind of system, you do not have any ability whatsoever to guarantee that the corrupt government will not come to the fore and take away your rights. That is basically the problem. That's why people don't trust the government. They have not proven themselves to be trustworthy, no matter who's running the show. Every government administration has shown that it is very, very willing to steal money, to steal power at the expense of the freedom of individuals.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you know what? One of the countries that's leading right now in creating a central bank digital currency, China.
Yeah.
The Chinese central bank digital currency is may become the leading international digital currency because they're pushing it so hard. It's now, we can say a lot of things about the Chinese government, but it's definitely not run by the U.S. Constitution, and their abuse is there. And we would be terrified if we lived in a society with government that had that much control.
Well, so of course,
just resist it.
Mao Zedong would be absolutely delighted to see that China has a central bank digital currency. That would have been his. He would be salivating for that, and he's not there. But the leaders now are able to do that because they're not a free society. We know they're not a free society. So if you want to have a free society, you have to be aware of the tools that keep you free and not allow those tools to fall into the hands of the government.
Yeah, yeah. I was reading on the federal bank website about their exploration of the central bank digital currency. And I was a bit disappointed. They talked about the pros and cons of the central bank digital currency. And they listed a lot of the technical risks with the digital currency. They did not mention at all the potential for a loss of privacy or abuse by the central government. And I guess they had a PR guy look at it and say, even though that's probably the biggest risk, they're not going to list it on their analysis of risks. And it's unfortunate, right? I feel a lot more confident in the federal government that said, hey, one reason we're reluctant to do this is it could be abused. Now that might be a government that I might give a little bit more, a little more leash to. But everyone who talks about central bank digital currency knows one of the number one risks is it being abused by the government. And the government should at least recognize that in their analysis of the status quo.
Well, if they're not willing to let everybody know, then it's up to you and me, don't you think?
Yeah, I think people have to keep themselves informed, and they have to be aware. We talked a lot about the trade-off between convenience and freedom, and people need to love freedom. People need to value that freedom, and know what choices they make that infringe on that freedom or expand it, right?
Well, that's really the point, is that I don't think that a lot of people appreciate freedom on a daily basis. They don't walk around, they don't walk down the street thinking, if I were in communist China, or if I was in uh, Russia during the Soviet Union, I probably couldn't walk down the street like this without constantly looking over my shoulder and wondering if the KGB were watching everything that I was doing. We don't think about freedom on a minute to minute basis, but you should, because that is what allows you to just walk down the street and not even worry about who may be following you.
Yeah, yeah. It's going back to the national political stage. We're talking about freedom, and right now we've got a No Kings rally. There's over the weekend No Kings rally, right? Because people are afraid of autocracy, of people taking away their individual freedoms. Well, in the Biden administration, there's a lot of executive overreach and a lot of infringement of people's freedoms. It was the other side that was arguing. So we do see on the macro level, people can be very concerned when their freedoms get infringed or are threatened. We just need to bring that to our daily lives and say it's not just people who are protesting No Kings. This can happen in our own lives, and when we're doing just a transaction to buy a bottle of milk or a case of beer.
But again, the problem is that if the population is not fed the truth, and worse yet, if they won't accept the truth, that's when it becomes really difficult to argue on a national stage or debate even on any kind of stage at all and say, yes, I know you believe this, but what you believe is really not true. And I have the facts that prove it's not true. We're not at a point in this country, we are so divided in this country that I think it would be very difficult to actually have that kind of a conversation with someone who had hard facts, hard beliefs on the other side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I admire people who engage. I was working the state fair. The Libertarian Party has a booth in the North Carolina State Fair, and I always am thrilled when people stop by the booth and share their ideas. Sometimes you have libertarians that you sing from the same hymnal, but sometimes you have people that challenge your ideas a little bit, and I really value the people that go out of their way and engage and say, hey, I don't necessarily believe what you believe. I don't know. It's not a big cross-section of the population right now, but they're out there, and those discussions are gold. I change my views sometimes. I'm certainly a lot more sensitive. We talked about Social Security earlier. I'm a lot more sensitive to how important that program is to so many people, and I'd like to preserve the program for the people who really need it.
Well, that's true. But again, like I say, is that if we can discuss these things, but you have to have an audience. And you mentioned like the No Kings protests or whatever you want to call them. In some reporters, went there and asked people, why are you here? What are you doing this for? And a high percentage of them didn't really know why they were there because they were paid to be there. So when you have demonstrations that are made up of people who are there as a job rather than because they believe firmly in something, it really detracts from that. And I always go back to the Tea Party rally of 2009 and 2010. Those were people who appeared in Washington, D.C., who were absolute firm believers in the Constitution, firm believers in individual freedom, free market economy, fiscal responsibility. And when they went to Washington, they all knew why they were there. And they weren't there because someone paid their ticket. They were there because they wanted the government to hear and understand their grievances. First Amendment.
Yeah. So, I love the contrast with the Tea Party and the what we call AstroTurf demonstrations. Everyone in the audience has the same homemade sign, right? But it is interesting. I talked about the Tea Party. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. You have to rescue me. Yeah, get me back on track again. I've got too many ideas going through my head. Oh, yeah, people not paying attention or not willing to engage in discussion. I don't know if this is the ultimate solution to that. We just got to keep out here and keep banging the drum. Here's the anecdote. This is what I was trying to think of. I went to a seminar once on how to talk to people about political issues, and they said never admit that you're wrong, never admit that you're uncertain. Always project confidence in your opinion.
So, Bob Drock, at this point, your feed has gotten very weak, and so we were talking about the Tea Party and about the fact that when they joined together in Washington D.C. in 2009 and 2010, that was a rally of people who came from all over the country because they loved America and they understood why they were coming there. They were there in order to show the powers in Washington, D.C., that there were people who believed in the Constitution, that people who believed in individual freedom, fiscal responsibility, free market economy, personal responsibility, which is the other side of the coin of liberty. One side is freedom of choice, and the other is personal responsibility. You have to have both. And because of that, that's why they were there. And that was, to me, an honest demonstration of public will. So, how about you? Would you like to regain your conversation about the Tea Party?
Yeah. So sorry about that. I got a little bit lost. I love the thing I loved about the Tea Party when I was reading about the demonstrations in Washington D.C. is they said the next day the park police came by. There were a couple 100,000 demonstrators there, and there was nothing to clean up. And that told me that the people went there with respect to share their ideas and opinions, and I think they had a good political impact. They were mocked by the other side of the aisle for some of their views, but the thing I liked about the Tea Party was they also espoused this idea of let's spend what we take in, and that balanced that approach to a balanced, fiscally responsible government is counter to the I guess socialist agenda, which would be to keep increasing the size of the government, get to the point where 50, 60, 80, 100% of your income belongs to the state, no longer belongs to you. And that's the antithesis of the Tea Party.
And that's true. And don't forget that what we're fighting here really is an attempt to change our government, our economic system as well, and to also move us further on that government continuum between anarchy and totalitarianism. Their desire is to move us all the way or most of the way to totalitarianism, and that's what an ID chip, national ID, and a central bank digital currency would achieve. And that's what's really important to understand, is that would radically change our country for the worst. And when that Tea Party, when they cleaned up that park, what that contrasted to is the demonstrations today that end up in burning down neighborhoods and cars and people's livelihoods going up in smoke because demonstrations happen to occur in their neighborhoods, which I think shows that those people don't have America at heart.
I can't agree with you more, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so Bob Drack, we've touched on some really important stuff. And how would you like to sum up our conversation tonight?
Well, I like that we went across a range of issues. You started with my favorite topic, which is let's have a responsible federal government. Let's start establishing the principle of spending what you bring in, and then make the tough decisions around that. See if everybody can share a little bit in the sacrifice that it's going to take to get our country back on track. And then we delved into a few specific examples of the risks of continuing to give too much to the federal government, whether it's in the form of personal information or relying on them too much for all of your financial transactions. And I think those are two specific examples of the erosion of our freedoms and the risks in the path we're going down right now.
Well, Bob Drack, and I'm going to mention again your website, drac.us, drach.us. Visit, get to know Bob Drack. I'm hoping, Bob, that you'll run again for an office so I can vote for you. And thank you very, very much for being a guest on Freedom Forum Live.